Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. A reading from 7th Canto, Chapter 8. The Lord slays the king of the demons, text 30. By the way, Ganesham Govinda Prabhu, what time does this class? Is there a fixed end? Samramba Duspreksha Karala Lochano Vyatanunantam Vilahan Svajivaya Asriglavak Taruna Kesharanano Yatantramali Dwipahatyaya Hari Sangramba Duspreksha Karala Lochano Yattananantam Vilahan Sajivaya Ashrig Lavataruna Kesharanano Yatantramali Dripahatyaya Hari Sangrambha Duspreksha Karala Lochano Vyattananantam Vilahan Svajivaya Asrig Lavak Taruna Kesharanano Yatantramali Dripahatyaya Hari Vaishnavis. Sangrambha, because of great anger. Duspreksha, very difficult to look at. Karala, very fearful. Lochana, eyes. Vyatta, expanded. Anana antam, the edge of the mouth. Vilahan, licking. Swajivvaya, with his tongue. Ashriklava, with spots of blood. Akta, smeared. Aruna, reddish. Keshara, mane. Anana, and face. Yata, just as. Antramali, decorated with a garland of intestines. Dripahatyaya, by the killing of an elephant. Hari, the lion. Translation. Lord Nrsimhadeva's mouth and mane were sprinkled with drops of blood, and his fierce eyes, full of anger, were impossible to look at. Licking the edge of his mouth with his tongue, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nrsimhadeva, decorated with a garland of intestines taken from Hiranyakashipu's abdomen, resembled a lion that had just killed an elephant. Purport. The hair on Lord Nrsimhadeva's face, being sprinkled with drops of blood, was reddish and looked very beautiful. Lord Nrsimhadeva pierced Hiranyakashipu's abdomen with his nails, pulled out the demon's intestines, and wore them as a garland, which enhanced his beauty. Thus the Lord became very fearsome, like a lion engaged in fighting an elephant. Translation again. Lord Nrsimhadeva's mouth and mane were sprinkled with drops of blood, and his fierce eyes, full of anger, were impossible to look at. Licking the edge of his mouth with his tongue, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nrsimhadeva, decorated with a garland of intestines taken from Hiranyakashipu's abdomen, resembled a lion that had just killed an elephant. Om Gyanachimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Today we shall meditate on the anger aspect of this pastime of Lord Nrsimhadeva killing Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu's anger has no comparison in the material world. Do you remember what Hiranyakashipu's reaction was when for the second time he heard from his school teachers that he employed to teach Prahlad? He heard that Prahlad was still preaching bhakti to his schoolmates. The teachers, as you know, were afraid for their life. And they informed Hiranyakashipu, there's nothing we can do about this boy. We're reporting to you. It's out of our control. Only you can do something. So I want you to visualize Hiranyakashipu's anger. His body was trembling. He was hissing like a snake. His eyes were staring in a crooked way. Have you ever been that angry? Your whole body is shaking. Yeah, we can practice now. Make your body shake. And then, come on. And make your eyes crooked. You're so angry that your eyes don't focus straightly. This is Hiranyakashipu in utter rage. He prepares to kill his own son. He tells his son, the way you talk is the way someone who wants to die talks. He had accused Prahlad that you're siding with the family's worst enemy. But Prahlad lectured him. Prahlad preached to him that this friend and enemy distinction is just a product of the materialistic, uncontrolled mind. Can you imagine in this situation, Prahlad is still preaching. Hiranyakashipu's eyes are red hot. As we said, his body is shaking with anger. He's like a snake that's been stepped on. And Prahlad is going to preach to him about there are no enemies in this world except for the uncontrolled mind. This is like feeding milk to a serpent. The venom simply increases. This is a classic example of how you cannot give good instruction to such a depraved person. So you might think, why did Prahlad do that? Doesn't Prahlad know he's just agitating his father even further? But you have to understand that Prahlad can do nothing but speak about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotional service. He's hardwired in that way. So it's not that he's trying to agitate his father, get on his father's nerves, but he's just being his natural self as a pure devotee of the Lord. A pure devotee of the Lord cannot live for a moment without glorifying Krishna. Furthermore, you have to understand that Prahlad is not afraid. Why should he stop speaking the truth? So what was Hiranyakashipu's reaction upon hearing Prahlad's instruction about control your senses, please, Father. Control your mind. You're in Maya. What was Hiranyakashipu's further reaction? It was further rage. Ha! You think you're better than me at controlling the senses? You think you're superior to me? And then, of course, we know about Hiranyakashipu's scientific challenge from the materialistic scientific point of view. Prahlad, you're always talking about someone more powerful than me. Where is this most powerful being? We all know. He's nowhere to be found. You're imagining this, Prahlad. Just like today, often persons say, oh, you are involved with spirituality because you're afraid to face the realities of life. You're like a little child that needs some kind of fairy tale to console you. Therefore you have this Krishna bhakti because you can't stand up to the coldness and indifference of the universe. Take responsibility for yourself. Create your own meaning. Why do you have to rely on some imaginary God that gives your life meaning? You give yourself your own meaning. In the cold and indifferent and dark universe, you make your own light. People can say that. And Hiranyakashipu gave that challenge to his son Prahlad, that we all know you're speaking nonsense when you refer to a supreme being more powerful than me. We all know that supreme being is nowhere to be found, nowhere to be seen. Let's make an experiment, Prahlad. I'm going to take my sword and I'm going to cut off your head. If there is a supreme being, he'll stop me. But we all know there's no supreme being, and therefore, Prahlad, prepare to die. That will be the proof of this scientific, empirical experiment. You say he's everywhere. We don't see anything. Of course, Prahlad sees Lord Nrsimhadeva peeping out of the pillar. Reassuring Prahlad, yes, of course, as you know, I'm here. So with great rage, in that famous scene, demonstrated in countless dramas by children throughout the world of ISKCON, Hiranyakashipu smashes the pillar, and then he gets the shock of his life. His rage is impossible for us to fathom, but then out from the pillar comes Lord Nrsimhadeva with a rage that unlimitedly exceeds Hiranyakashipu's rage. So here you have a battle of anger. The anger of Hiranyakashipu and the anger of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This shows you how the Supreme Absolute Truth is perfect and complete. The very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam says, Janmadi Yasyata. The absolute truth is that from which everything emanates. Everything means everything, even anger, even terror. The Supreme Personality of Godhead doesn't simply play with the cowherd boys and dance with the gopis. He has everything within him. Pure terror, pure horror. Qualities that have nothing to do with the material energy. Generally, we'll think that anger is material. Terror is material. And therefore, when people look at Krishna's intimate pastimes of playing with his friends and dancing with the gopis, they think, we know what this is. This is material. And when they hear of Lord Nrsimhadeva, they think this is some kind of material story. They don't understand the science of the Supreme. How everything emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whatever is there in your tiny material experience is there in Krishna, and unlimitedly more. So now you're dealing with unlimited anger and unlimited terror. Hiranyakashipu thought he's the #1 terrorist. But it turns out to be he's as insignificant as a little fly. So he sees this form of Lord Nrsimhadeva, but he doesn't see first. He first hears. Lord Nrsimhadeva appears first as sound. A sound that seems to split the whole universe. Even the demigods like Lord Brahma are astonished by such a sound. So there's just the sound for a while. And then the sight of Lord Nrsimhadeva. So Hiranyakashipu is trying to figure out what he's looking at. He's never seen such a phenomenon before. What is this? Is it a man? Is it a lion? How can it be both? He's trying to figure out, what am I looking at? And then he reassures himself with his materialistic pride. Anyway, it doesn't matter what this creature is. No one can defeat me. He pats himself on the back and props himself up. And then the battle begins between Lord Nrsimhadeva and Hiranyakashipu. The demigods are watching from a hidden vantage point. They're afraid that if Hiranyakashipu during the battle happens to see the demigods watching like spectators watching a match, cheering, the demigods are afraid that if somehow or other Hiranyakashipu slips away from Nrsimhadeva, Hiranyakashipu will take action against us. So they were very cautious. Because Lord Nrsimhadeva would play with Hiranyakashipu like a cat plays with a mouse. Lord Nrsimhadeva let Hiranyakashipu escape from his grip. He didn't kill him immediately. He prolonged the whole episode for his own satisfaction. But what did Hiranyakashipu think? Ah, there's hope. Actually, no worries. What did he do? He took a little rest. He took a nap. He didn't understand that Lord Nrsimhadeva is just relishing this pastime as the supreme enjoyer. So then Hiranyakashipu woke up and continued the battle, but he's actually very afraid. What makes him so terrified? The laughter of Lord Nrsimhadeva. The laughter of Lord Nrsimhadeva is so terrifyingly upsetting that Hiranyakashipu is fighting with his eyes closed. Just the laughter has immobilized him in terms of his courage. But he's going on fighting, but moving here and there with his eyes closed. And then Lord Nrsimhadeva pounces on him, grabs him, and Hiranyakashipu is wriggling this way and that way. He's in his last moments. And as you know, Lord Nrsimhadeva puts him on his lap and then rips open his abdomen and pulls out the intestines and garlands himself with the intestines. He's not done yet, though. He wants to examine the heart of Hiranyakashipu. So he rips open the chest and carefully pulls out the heart of Hiranyakashipu. Careful with the buds, with the tips of his lotus hands, he's pulling out the heart. And he's inspecting the heart. What happened here? This used to be my residence. This was the heart of my devotee, Jai in Vaikuntha. What happened here? How has this heart become so full of anger and lust and greed? So he's looking at the heart in that way. And then he just takes the heart and throws it aside. Meanwhile, thousands of Hiranyakashipu's assistants try to attack Lord Nrsimhadeva, who just finishes them off with his fingertips. So the roaring of Lord Nrsimhadeva continues, and the demigods don't know what to do, how to stop it. Let's meditate on the beauty of Lord Nrsimhadeva's Satchidananda terror. As we read in today's verse, his mouth and his mane, the hair on his body, were sprinkled with drops of blood. Sounds grotesque, doesn't it? But Lord Nrsimhadeva is fully spiritual. His mouth, his hair are all fully spiritual. His fierce eyes, full of anger, were impossible to look at. So he's licking the edge of his mouth with his tongue. And he has that garland of intestines taken from Hiranyakashipu's abdomen. All this enhances his beauty. Have you ever thought of beauty enhancement in such a way? Have the Vaishnavis ever looked in the mirror and imagined themselves, how would I look with a garland of intestines? My hair sprinkled with drops of blood. No, you would never see yourself or want to see yourself in that way. But this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, defying all material conceptions, showing that even in the situation of the greatest anger, the greatest terror, the unlimited beauty is still there. So now we have the situation of Hiranyakashipu dead. All his demoniac associates are killed, but Lord Nrsimhadeva's unlimited anger still goes on. The residents of the heavenly planets, the Devatas, the sages, are all congratulating Lord Nrsimhadeva. They're feeling relief, and at the same time, they're feeling joy in celebrating the great victory. The sky is crowded with the airplanes of the residents of the heavenly planets. The ladies are showering flowers upon Lord Nrsimhadeva. But still there's this anger that no one can solve. Lord Nrsimhadeva's hair on his head is scattering the clouds in the sky. The glare from his eyes steals the illumination of the sun and the moon. His breathing affects the oceans and the seas. And his feet are pushing down on the earth, so much so that the earth slips from its orbit, and hills and mountains spring up on the earth. And his roaring makes elephants flee. So the demigods have to cope with this situation. How to stop the anger now that Hiranyakashipu is dead. How to persuade Lord Nrsimhadeva that there's no need to be angry anymore. So one after another, the Devatas and the residents of the heavenly planets approach Lord Nrsimhadeva, and they're giving prayers. You can get a whole panoramic understanding of all the beings of the universe just by studying the prayers offered to Lord Nrsimhadeva from the various residents of the universe, including the chief Devatas. Lord Brahma is first, and he says, my dear Lord, you are Dharanta Shakti. You have inconceivable, difficult to understand potencies. You can create the material world and be untouched by it because you're acting through your energies. Lord Shiva is next. My dear Lord, I am your anger that manifests at the time of the cosmic annihilation. But now's not the time for you to continuously show such anger. And Lord Shiva reminds Lord Nrsimhadeva, just right nearby is Prahlad. Don't you want to show him some affection? In other words, don't you want to calm down now? Lord Shiva says, I'm familiar with your anger because I represent your anger, doing my Tandava Nritya, dance of destruction at the end of the universe. And then Indra, he also tries. My dear Lord, you've restored our shares of the yajna. It's always a concern of Indra, as you know from Govardhan Leela. Remember in the Govardhan Leela, when he at the conclusion, he offers his prayers to Govinda and confesses, I caused this attempt to annihilate Vrindavan because I thought that you were taking my shares of the yajna. He has that concern. So he prays to Lord Nrsimhadeva, thank you for restoring our shares of the yajna. No one can pacify Lord Nrsimhadeva. Even Lakshmi Devi, who is the constant companion of the Lord in Vaikuntha, she can't pacify Lord Nrsimhadeva. Everyone agrees we have never seen such a form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead before. In one sense, that is not completely true in the ordinary sense. Lakshmi Devi has seen Lord Nrsimhadeva before in previous days of Brahma, and also she always sees Lord Nrsimhadeva in Vaikuntha, where he has his own abode. So what's going on here? What's true and what's false? The Leela Shakti, the pastime energy of the Lord, is making everyone, even Lakshmi Devi, think this has never happened before. Why? Because that adds to the rasa of adbhuta. It's a secondary rasa of astonishment. Krishna's pastime energy knows how to, so to speak, hype the situation up. Make the drama infinitely intense. So Lakshmi Devi has certainly seen Lord Nrsimhadeva before, in Vaikuntha and in a previous day, Kalpa of Brahma. But now she's saying, I've never seen this before. It's true and it's false. She's covered by the Leela Shakti, the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that arranges his pastimes for maximum pleasure. And part of that pleasure, as we said, is the rasa, the secondary rasa. You'll read in Nectar Devotion about secondary rasas. The secondary rasa of adbhuta, astonishment. It's a flavor. And for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that flavor is being magnified. So what's going to happen? How is the anger of Lord Nrsimhadeva going to be resolved? Lord Brahma has an idea. He puts the burden on Prahlad. Prahlad, this is all because of you. Please present yourself to Lord Nrsimhadeva and reduce his anger. He has appeared because of you. Now, ordinarily, what would you think? Prahlad has just witnessed Nrsimhadeva killing his father. Yet, along with the Devatas, Prahlad is glorifying Lord Nrsimhadeva for killing Hiranyakashipu, who is Prahlad's father. I wonder if you thought about this. Normally, you would never glorify the killer of your own father. But Prahlad understands the situation. And Lord Brahma knows, Prahlad understands, and Prahlad is the only one here who can pacify Lord Nrsimhadeva's anger, because Lord Nrsimhadeva appeared especially out of affection for Prahlad. Now, one thing you should bear in mind is that Prahlad is confident, he's fully convinced of the affection of Lord Nrsimhadeva. He's not absorbed in the terror. He's not reacting to the horror and the terror. In the whole situation, in the whole Leela, Prahlad is just soaking up the affection from Lord Nrsimhadeva. He sees Lord Nrsimhadeva not as Ugra Nrsimha in terms of terrifying Prahlad. Prahlad sees Lord Nrsimhadeva as the embodiment, the murti of affection. Lord Nrsimhadeva is very fatherly to Prahlad. So, the demoniac father has been killed, and Prahlad's real father relationship is with Lord Nrsimhadeva. So he comes forward, he approaches Lord Nrsimhadeva, paying his obeisances, his prostrated obeisances. And Lord Nrsimhadeva puts his hand on Prahlad's head, his paw on Prahlad's head, letting everyone know Prahlad is fully spiritual. Now, one detail you may wonder about is, at that moment when Lord Nrsimhadeva put his paw on Prahlad's head, is that when Prahlad became pure and was able to recite such prayers with Brahma Gyan, knowledge of the absolute truth? No. It's just that at that time, that moment when Lord Nrsimhadeva puts his hand, his paw on Prahlad's head, that's when the purity of Prahlad fully manifests. It was always there. Due to what? The purity was there due to the blessings of Narada Muni. So when Nrsimhadeva puts his paw on Prahlad's head, that's when the full manifestation occurs. Just like you have an unripe mango and a mango. Both are mangoes. It's just that the ripe mango is sweet because it's showing its full potential, its full manifestation of sweetness. Whereas the unripe mango has the potential for sweetness, but it's not yet the time to show it. So upon having Lord Nrsimhadeva's paw on his head, Prahlad then begins to offer his prayers. And what's the first thing he says? How do I deserve this? Even someone in sattva guna, in the mode of goodness, cannot attract the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What to speak of someone like me from a tamoguna family saturated with passion and ignorance. How did I get this opportunity? When even the devatas in the mode of goodness can't approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prahlad is showing you the qualities, the characteristics of a real devotee, no matter how advanced. And Prahlad is certainly a pure devotee. He has no other desire in life other than to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet he's thinking himself unqualified. Just like in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami refers to himself as being more sinful than Jagai and Madhai and lower than a worm in stool. The writer of the most exquisite, most exalted Vaishnava literature thinks of himself in that way. And he's not just speaking like poetry. Oh, this would sound really good to say. Jagai Madhai Muni se papishta Purishere kita hoite Muni se lagishta. He's not just rhyming. He really feels that way. So before he offers his prayers speaking about Lord Nrsimhadeva, he clarifies that, who am I? How do I deserve this experience? And then he begins to explain that to receive the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not depend on your birth. It doesn't depend on even material qualities that are praised, like austerity, controlling the mind and senses. All those are good things, but they don't directly attract the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prahlad points out, you can be born in a high caste. You can be born in a Brahmana family. But if you're not a devotee of Krishna, your position is lower than someone who's born in the family of a dog-eater. A dog-eater family, yet that person becomes a devotee of Krishna. So Prahlad clarifies this. Nothing has any ultimate value without bhakti. All your material qualifications are useless. Even the qualifications, the material qualifications of a brahmana, the highest position, materially speaking, is all useless without Krishna bhakti. Yet someone born in the lowest family of dog-eaters, upon becoming a Vaishnava, is the most exalted. So Prahlad is clarifying this. Look at Prahlad Maharaj himself. He's born in the most demoniac family, with the most demoniac father you could imagine. Yet, he's receiving first the mercy of Narada Muni, and then the mercy of Lord Nrsimhadeva. So we can understand how perfect and complete the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. Lord Nrsimhadeva, Rupa Goswami says, is one of the 3 appearances of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that reveal the most of the potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in all his incarnations and all his plenary expansions, is Om Purnam, completely full, but he doesn't show that fullness in the various expansions and incarnations. The 3 that show the most are classified as Pada Avasta by Rupa Goswami. There's Lord Nrsimhadeva, who demonstrates such power and fatherly affection for Prahlad. And then, more than that manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in terms of fullness is Lord Ramchandra. And then the 100% full demonstration, manifestation is Lord Krishna. So it's not that for example, it's not that Lord Ramchandra or Lord Nrsimhadeva are deficient. They have less than Krishna. No, they're full, they're Om Purnam, but they don't demonstrate, they don't manifest everything. Only in Krishna do you find the full presentation. That doesn't mean we think less of Lord Nrsimhadeva or think less of Lord Ramchandra. And today, on the appearance day of Lord Nrsimhadeva, we can always remember how he protects the devotees. And in this very dangerous material world, and why will Prahlad Maharaj say the material world is dangerous? Because of material influence. We should always keep that in mind. Prahlad says that he's not afraid of the 3-fold miseries. He's afraid of materialistic association. I wonder how many of you have that fear. On the list of things to be afraid of: economic collapse, climate change, nuclear warfare, cancer, COVID. Where on the list is fear of material association? No, we're proud. You think, I can handle myself. I believe in Krishna. My grandparents believed in Krishna. We have a very casual attitude about contact with the material energy, especially in the form of contact with materialistic persons. And what is the first thing, according to Lord Chaitanya, that a Vaishnava does? What's the first way that you can tell someone who is a Vaishnava? He or she avoids materialistic association. That doesn't mean you have to be obnoxious to everyone, but you have to be careful. So Prahlad Maharaj says, this is what I'm afraid of. He says, I'm not even afraid of Lord Nrsimhadeva. I'm afraid of materialistic association.